All right, today we're going to talk about something that might just be the most powerful medicine on the planet. And believe it or not, it's also the most overlooked. It's something so simple, so ancient that we barely even think about it. But its power for our hearts, it's absolutely profound. So let's dive into the science behind the simple act of walking. So let's rewind the clock. Way back around 400 BC, you've got Hippocrates, the father of medicine, making this huge claim. Think about it. No clinical trials, no heart rate monitors, none of the tech we have today. Yet he saw something fundamental about our health. And for centuries, this wasn't just an idea. It was considered basic wisdom. So, okay, that's the ancient wisdom. But how does that claim really stack up against the tough, rigorous standards of modern science? I mean, after 2,500 years of research, can we actually prove what Hippocrates seemed to know just by instinct? Well, that is exactly the question we are going to tackle today. Okay, so where do we even start? Well, let's begin with the big picture. We're going to look at what the epidemiological evidence says. And these are just massive studies that track health patterns across, tens of thousands of people. And we are not talking about a small sample size here. Not at all. Check out this number. Over 72,000. That's how many female nurses were tracked for 8 years in the famous Nurses' Health Study. And here's the crucial part. At the very beginning, every single one of them was free of cardiovascular disease and cancer. This gave the researchers a perfect, clean slate to see exactly what happens when you introduce one simple lifestyle choice, walking, over a long period of time. So what they found was pretty surprising, honestly. I think a lot of us assume that you have to be doing, marathon training or some crazy high-intensity workout to get any real heart benefits. But the data here showed something else entirely. Women who just walked briskly for 3 or more hours a week, they saw a 30 to 40% drop in coronary events. And get this, that's almost the exact same benefit as the people doing super vigorous exercise. So the big takeaway here, it wasn't about the intensity, it was all about consistent movement. And you know that whole 10,000 step goal we all hear about, that you need to hit that number to see any real benefit? Well, another huge meta-analysis completely debunked that myth. It turns out the risk of dying from cardiovascular issues starts to drop, and I mean drop significantly, at just over 2,300 steps a day. Just think about that. That is such an achievable, accessible starting point for pretty much anyone. And this does a fantastic job of showing what scientists call a dose-response relationship. Basically, the more you take the medicine, in this case walking, the stronger the effect. Look at this data from the Women's Health Initiative. If you compare the least active women, right, to those who walked more, you can just see their risk for heart problems dropping systematically. It's like a staircase down. By the time you get to the most active group, their relative risk has plummeted. The message could not be clearer. The more you walk, the more protection your heart gets. All right, so we've seen the proof on a massive scale. It works. But how? What is actually happening inside our bodies when we go for a walk that causes these incredible changes? Okay, let's zoom in from the population level right down to the nitty-gritty physiology. Okay, so it really starts with your blood vessels. When you start walking briskly, your heart starts pumping more blood, right? Well, that increased flow creates this gentle, healthy stress on the inner lining of your arteries. And your arteries respond. They start producing more of this amazing molecule called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is basically a signal. It tells the muscles in your artery walls to just relax. And when they relax, the vessels widen, which makes it easier for blood to flow and, you guessed it, lowers your blood pressure. It's just a beautiful, elegant, self-regulating system. But it's not just about blood pressure. Walking also wages this sort of quiet war against chronic low-grade inflammation, which we now know is a major, major driver of heart disease. I love this analogy. Think of that inflammation as a slow-burning fire smoldering inside your blood vessels. Well, regular walking is like the fire department. It helps put out that fire. We can actually see it in the data. Studies show it dramatically reduces key inflammatory markers, things like C-reactive protein. It just calms your whole system down and protects those precious blood vessels from damage. Okay, but the benefits don't just stop at your physical heart. Walking has this incredible effect on our body's command center, the brain. And this connection, what we call the brain-heart axis, is absolutely critical if you want to understand the full power of walking as medicine. So think about stress. We all know chronic stress is just awful for our hearts. Well, walking acts like a natural buffer against it. When you go for a brisk walk, your brain releases this whole cocktail of feel-good chemicals.
You get beta endorphins, which give you that sense of well-being, and other stuff that just naturally enhances your mood. What this does is it calms down your body's stress response, basically protecting your heart from being bombarded by those damaging alarm signals all day long.
Okay, so we've seen the proof, we've gone through the how it works inside the body. Now let's get to what is maybe the most important part. How do you turn all this science into a practical, personal prescription for yourself? What does this actually look like in real life? This chart just makes that dose-response thing we talked about crystal clear. This is from a big study of US adults. And just look at the relationship between daily steps and the risk of dying from any cause. Compared to taking 4,000 steps, if you can get to 8,000 steps a day, that was linked to a 51% lower risk of death. 51%. And if you push that to 12,000 steps, the risk drops by a mind-blowing 65%. It's so clear. Every single step really does count. And this next point is so important, especially for the people who need it most. We're talking about patients who already have coronary artery disease, people for whom vigorous exercise might feel daunting or just not possible. For them, this finding is an absolute game changer. Research from the UK Biobank shows that even if you can't hit those standard exercise guidelines, just getting to 100 minutes of walking per week, that's less than 15 minutes a day, is enough to seriously lower your risk of both future heart problems and death. That is incredibly powerful. And look, this isn't just some abstract advice. This is a real plan. For patients who are recovering from a heart attack or surgery, this is a standard walking program used in cardiac rehab. You can see how it works. It's a safe, gradual progression. You start with just a few minutes around the house in the first week, and then you build up, step by step over 12 weeks until you're doing sustained, brisk walking. It's a clear, proven, trusted roadmap back to health. Okay, and finally, let's totally reframe how we think about walking. It's not just an activity you do, it's actually a diagnostic tool. Seriously, researchers are now calling walking speed the sixth vital sign, right up there with your blood pressure, heart rate, and temperature. How fast you walk is an incredibly powerful, cheap, and easy way to predict your future health, your risk of mortality, and even how much you might cost the healthcare system. It's such a simple thing to measure, but it has truly profound implications. So here we are, we've come full circle. The science, as you've seen, is just overwhelming. From those huge population studies all the way down to the tiny molecules inside our cells, the evidence today confirms what Hippocrates figured out 2,500 years ago. So the final question really isn't about the science anymore. It's a personal one. It's for you. If the world's most effective medicine is free, if it has basically no side effects, and if it's available to you the very second you decide to stand up, what's your next step?